Hi, this is Christine and I'm John Pedersen. On our Forestry paddock 40 k's from west of Whangarei at Parakao. We've got 232 hectares here that we own, and we lease another piece of land of about possibly 40 or 50 hectares off a neighbour. We've owned the farm now in our own right for 30 years, and Mum and Dad brought us up from Hawke's Bay when we were 16 years old.
And I just moved next door.
And Christine was, over the road. She was a neighbour. When lamb prices were really low, after quite a few years of planting poplars and willows for erosion control, we started planting some little blocks and corners and things, thinking, they'd be good little woodlots. But a few years later, we got told, we needed some economy of scale of our planting. So then, when lamb prices were terrible, we certainly didn't mind retiring some of our edges. And this farm is made up of ridges with that get steeper and steeper over the edges, where you can drive a four-wheel drive tractor down, but you certainly don't like it much. So we started doing 1 or 2 paddocks a year, eucalypts and other areas pine trees, and an odd area, a mix of eucalypts and pine trees. And so we quietly did that. It was sort of agroforestry spacing, which perhaps wasn't totally the right thing to do, but at least it got us planting trees with the least amount of money and the least amount of effort in a way, and got us keener. So, and then we evolved on to planting proper plantation pines and eucalypts mixed in with them, but at much closer spacings. We used to get really, really dry, probably 4 months of the year. So the eucalypts behind us here, this hedge here, was one of our first areas that we planted. It would just be a desert for months and months and months and grew next to nothing. So it was an easy candidate. Unfortunately, the trees at the top look a bit ugly because they catch a lot of wind, and unfortunately eucalypts, or these Mullorana, are quite damaged until they're 6 years old, and then miraculously, once they're over 6 years old, the wind hardly does them any damage, but they actually grow their log in the first 6 years, the form of their log in the first 6 years, so you've got to be a little bit careful. So they would have been a whole heap better with some pines mixed in with them for shelter. There's a timber line of pines behind them that you can't see. They many years younger. They're probably at least 6 years younger than these. So after we started our woodlots and all, then we suddenly got into timber lines. So we've got quite a few kilometres of timber lines of pines, which are quite interesting, but a bit of a challenge. But they gave us a lot of trees on a little bit of land, so that was why we did that.
But actually planting in all the steep areas and the gullies, 2 other effects: mustering, less the stock losses are less, and you're protecting your waterways, which is important as well. So multi-benefit.
And it made us realise that it's much easier to subdivide paddocks. Like that was the beginning of our quite intensive subdivision, so now we're up to 130 paddocks and adding more each year because it's really quite easy now. The grass down through this lot of trees is probably typical of how it's changed under the eucalypts, except that it's got a little bit of kikuyu moved in up the top here, but that's not common. Like, it's only a little bit up the top here. So it definitely, we get a lot more grazing out of there now than we did. The shelter from the timber lines and the whole plantings has certainly made a difference to our stock health and all. And back when we started, we were struggling to get 100% lambing, and I think this year we're probably going to be close to 175%, maybe a little more, somewhere around there. But that's to do with a whole lot of things. But it certainly makes lamb survival a whole lot better when they can get back near some shelter. Even in Northland, it's not supposed to get cold. because the hill behind us on the 16th of August last year was covered in snow for about 3 hours, which is the first since we've ever been here, so it can get cold here. Yeah, and the cattle appreciate shade and shelter. Frisian bulls are thin coated things, they feel the cold, they perform a lot better when it's warmer, so any bit of shelter that they can get they like too.
And they'll have a tree to rub on too.
And a tree, yeah. So this planting has probably, we're running less animals because take 40 hectares out of grass, but the benefits just so far outweigh that in stock health and shelter, and the way forestry prices are just quietly going back up again, economically we'll be quids in. And it just makes our whole environment for us nicer. It's a much nicer environment for everybody. When we first started planting bigger areas, people asked us what the future for all this was going to be, and I quite flippantly, I suppose, said, I want to pay $1 million the tax the year that I turn 70. And they look at me as though you must be a nutter. I said, yeah, but I'm going to have 2 million, and then the farm can do whatever it likes. We can give it away, and we'll be happy for the rest of our life. So there's no other thing that can do that. It's a very, very good enforced saving scheme. It's better than any KiwiSaver, or I suppose they're not quite the same as money in the bank, but to us they definitely are. When you get around to thinking that you're going to plant some areas and trees, please go and pay your $120 and join Farm Forestry and learn from their mistakes, because every mistake that can be made, people there will have made it, and people learn a whole lot more from making a mistake than they do from success. If you're successful first off, you've got a whole lot of mistakes still coming. So, and Farm Forestry, and they will share all that willingly with you. They'll gladly tell you about their pet tree that blew over, or this or that happened, and which species do better where and why and everything else. Because we find it rather sad when people suddenly fall in love with something, the thing that they're going to do, and we know lots of other people that have done exactly the same thing and it turns to custard. Well, just pay your money and learn from them, because they definitely know. And the whole lot of other benefits, it becomes a nice social, you'll find it a nice social club, and you'll meet people from all over the place. You'll get contacts all around the world from it, so do that. When you're 25 or 30 years old and you think 25 years time, well, you're going to be twice as old, that's a long, long way away. Well, 25 years rapidly goes round whether you planted the trees or not, and I tell you, when in 25 years time you'll be a whole lot happier that you planted the trees than if you didn't, because you're going to maybe look at your neighbours that didn't and smile as you head off somewhere in a big plane or something.
Sometimes it turns people off, saying you're doing it for environmental reasons, but the way it's worked here, we've always been conscious of water quality and the need for water and the shade and the shelter for the animals, along with the hopefully economic benefit down the track.
Met lots of amazing people. We've had students from overseas come. We have work experience, students from Germany come and stay. They think it's just wonderful. It's opened up a whole lot of avenues to us that would not have happened, solely because of totally because of the trees.
And meeting wonderful other people.
People, yeah.
New Zealanders.
Farmers have got, if you get a group of farmers together, they can talk about lots of things because they've all got something in common. If you get a group of farm foresters, then the whole thing becomes a whole new dimension. It's even better than farmers and fishermen.